In Mexico, there was various tribes of hundreds, thousands of years that were there, and tribes eventually took over other tribes and eventually established kingdoms throughout the area. In the 15th century, I cannot pronounce the name of the tribe because it was in Aztec when I was reading it, but the kingdom went from the shores of the Pacific to the shores of the Atlantic and ran from Mexico, what's now known as Mexico City, all the way down to the Guatemalan border. And that became a particular kingdom of one tribe. And they practiced the various worshiping of nature gods and so forth. And oftentimes these gods required sacrifice, not simply of animals, but these particular gods, who were nothing more than demons, required the sacrifice of humans. And so there was a lot of human sacrifice happening in that area. Eventually, in the early 16th century, or early 16th century, came a new priest of the tribe, high king and priest. And he began to look at nature and really contemplate the mysteries of the world around him. And he figured out through natural reason that there really is only one God, and these other gods are false. And so he stopped sacrifice because he came to the reasoning that there was only one true God, and that one true God was about to reveal himself to them. It wouldn't be long after he would pass, and then his son would take the throne, and much like his father, he believed in the one true God, and that all these other gods were false. The country was then taken over by the Aztecs, came through and conquered them, and Montezuma came to the throne and became the king of that territory as the Aztecs came in and reinstituted sacrifice, particularly human sacrifice. They built new temples, and they would sacrifice over 1,000 people to get to a day to the feathered serpent god. Human, animal, mostly human sacrifice. And it was this that Cortez discovered when the Spanish arrived on the shores of Mexico, was an Aztec people who were sacrificing thousands of people a day. Cortez and Montezuma had a back and forth, and at one point Cortez could no longer take the human sacrifices happening and smashed their false gods and placed the Blessed Mother statue on top of the Aztec temples as a way of proclaiming Our Lady to conquer the serpent to whom they were offering such blood sacrifices. The Spanish made great inroads in converting the people, especially just before the Spanish arrived. Montezuma's sister, the princess, told him that she foresaw ships coming with the cross on the red cross on the sails, and they were going to bring the true faith to them. Which is why Montezuma was a little afraid when the Spanish arrived, because he was told by the former king that his kingdom would not last long. All the upheaval between the Spanish and the Aztecs had just increased, but they made a lot of converts, the missionaries, the Franciscans who came with them, and among those whom they converted from pagan ways was a middle-class fellow who was a furniture maker. He was married for a few years. His wife passed, very dedicated to the care of his uncle. He became a Catholic and would walk every day 9 miles. Well, Saturday and Sunday he'd walk to Mass for catechism on Saturday and Mass on Sunday. He'd walk 9 miles, which was really nothing at that time, I guess. And he took the baptismal name of Juan Diego. A very simple fellow, in his hometown where he was from. They had built the temple there when sacrificing 8,000 people a day before the Spanish arrived. And so, he was pretty much taken by this horrible sacrifice and came to know the one true God that was prophesied and believed in the faith, a very devout man. And then one morning, in answer to the prayer of the bishop who was praying for peace between the Aztecs and the Spanish, it would be Juan Diego who would receive the answer to the bishop's prayers. The bishop asked for peace, and he prayed to Our Lady that a sign would be given to him, that there would be peace between the Aztecs and the Spanish. And the sign that he asked for was Castilian roses. This was in early December, and there was no Castilian roses growing anywhere in Mexico. And with that morning, when Juan Diego was walking to church that Saturday morning, and there, standing on the hill of Tepeyac, was the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she told him to go to the bishop, and she wanted a shrine built there to her, to where she will hear and answer the prayers of the people. Finally, reaching Mexico City that day, he waited for hours to see the bishop. And then finally, he saw the bishop and told the bishop that Our Lady had come to him and that Our Lady wants a chapel built there on that hill where she would hear the prayers of the people. Knowing what sign he wanted to verify this, he said, "Tell Our Lady if it's really her that I want a sign from her." Knowing what his sign he wanted, what he had already prayed for. On his way home, he saw her again and said that the bishop wanted a sign, and Our Lady told him to come back the next day. Well, that Sunday morning, on his way to Mass, like he did every Sunday, he was in a bit of a rush because his uncle had fallen sick, and he wanted to get a priest for his uncle to anoint him before he died, and decided to sneak around the back of the hill of Tepeyac so he wouldn't get stopped by Our Lady because he was in a rush. And Our Lady appeared to him and said, "Juanito, little John, why are you so concerned? Why are you so worried? Are you not here in the crossing of my arms? Is there anything else that you need? I who am here, am I not your mother?" And the hill of Tepeyac began to bloom with beautiful roses. Our Lady told him to collect the roses in his tilma, his poncho, and so he did. And she said, "Bring them to me." And she rearranged all the flowers in his tilma. And then she said, "Bring this to the bishop and show him his sign." When he arrived at Mexico City and finally got to see the bishop, showing nobody what was in his tilma, he dropped his tilma and the flowers fell to the ground, and he said, "Our Lady gives you the sign." The bishop fell to his knees, not simply because the roses, but on his tilma was the beautiful image of what we now know as Our Lady of Guadalupe. This beautiful image. We'll speak more about her on Saturday in the words of Our Lady, because Saturday is her feast day. But Juan Diego's feast day is today. This young man, this Aztec, this widower, who received the message of Our Lady, and because of him being the messenger of Our Lady, within 7 years, 9 million Aztecs and those of his own tribe became Catholic and entered the waters of baptism. 9 million. The missionaries were writing letters, pleading with the Spanish church to send them more priests because they could not keep up with the baptisms. All from the beautiful image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Juan Diego himself, being so devoted to Our Lady, became very close friends with the bishop, and the bishop gave him permission to live as a hermit in a little small hut built next to the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe on the hill of Tepeyac. And every day, pilgrims upon pilgrims, thousands of Indians would come there to see the miracle of this beautiful image of Our Lady. And Juan Diego would walk them through and tell them the story of how Our Lady appeared to him and her love for the Aztec people and for the indigenous of Mexico. And he became a great missionary to those who came to the shrine and brought many, many, many to baptism. He died a very holy death in his 70s and has been declared a blessed of the church and a saint, not simply because he received the revelations, but because of his deep life of prayer. They said after a few years as living as a hermit, there was something different about him. His holiness began to show forth as he devoted himself to the love of his faith and to Our Lady. And just as prophesied in the book of Genesis that Our Lady would crush the head of the serpent, so the Blessed Mother crushed the head of the feather serpent, and there was no more sacrificing of children or people or anyone. The only sacrifice to spread throughout the land was the holy sacrifice of the Mass. People ask, why is Mexico so Catholic? There's one answer: Our Lady of Guadalupe, the great evangelist of Mexico. And she did so through the beautiful hands of little Juan Diego, a simple man who simply accepted and received the message of Our Lady and proclaimed it. I think Juan Diego is such a beautiful example of humility, simplicity, a beautiful image of someone who heard the message from heaven, received it, and lived it each and every day of his life. He was so devoted to the Blessed Mother. He saw the most horrible tragedies of what evil can do as a young child and as a young man. And when he discovered the true faith, he accepted it and embraced it, entered the waters of baptism. He found not only freedom in his Catholic faith, but he found true and lasting love in the embrace of Our Lady and in the grace of Christ Jesus. Just think of those beautiful words that he spoke, that Our Lady spoke to Juan Diego, that she speaks to all of us. Why are you so anxious? Why are you so worried? Are you not here in the folding of my arms? Is there anything else that you need? I who am here, am I not your mother? Such beautiful words to remember as we go through these difficult days. To remember that she is with us. She appeared on the soil of this continent. She appeared to us with those beautiful words. I who am here, am I not your mother? Is there anything else that you need? May God bless you and Mary keep you.